Now, the topic you all have been waiting to hear about, real estate. This is the time for you to learn how to make and keep more money in real estate. We have a special surprise for you today. Bruce A. Berman is here. Ladies and gentlemen, Bruce A. Berman.
Thank you. Thank you. You're way too kind. I'm Bruce A. Berman. Let's get going. Would you like to make money in real estate without putting up any of your own money? You can, because I will show you how to make money in real estate without having to own it. So why are you here? Most of my students have a job right now. Whatever it is most of them do for a living, they know what they're doing. They have a certain level of expertise that keeps them from getting fired. If a company employs them, they do it well enough that the company pays them for it. Obviously, this doesn't get them what they want in life, or they wouldn't be listening to me. Most employees have become a prisoner of their employer. The employer tells you when to work, what to work on, and how to work it. You want to change. But how do you move into a completely different field while still paying the bills? If you're like the average wage earner or even salaried professional, you're only a paycheck or two away from serious financial trouble. And this doesn't even address that matter of time. Do you dare neglect your current money-making activities to learn the complex methods and strategies that these programs require? What do you need? What you need is a means of breaking into real estate investment, one with no money needed. Is that really possible, or is it just some more hype? Yes, it is possible, but it doesn't mean you can just do it any old way. There are certain fundamental principles involved. But if you do things the right way, it works. It really involves working smarter, not harder. So what's the trick? We mentioned certain fundamental principles that lead to success. Here is one that applies here and helps you make money without spending money and without putting yourself at a lot of risk. You don't need to own a property to make money on it. You just need to have control of it. How does that work? Well, let's look at a real-life example first, then the explanation afterwards. KW of Seattle caught the real estate investor bug while in college. He bought a beat-up old mobile home to live in, and over time, painted it, recarpeted it, and generally made it pretty. When he graduated, he sold it for $5,000 more than he paid for it. He liked that so much that he decided to make investing his central occupation. The first deal he went after was a 6-unit apartment building in downtown Seattle. The price was great, unbelievably low. It turns out the reason for the low price was the building had been involved in a fire. Evidently, the owners at the time had failed to insure the structure and were forced into a fire sale price. It's always good to get a low price on a deal, but the cost might be more than the sales price. In this case, our friend brought in a contractor to make an estimate on the needed repairs. Cost of the repairs came out to be $75,000. That was much more money than this recent graduate had available to him. He was clearly in over his head. But KW was smart enough to know that he didn't have to walk away from the deal. He knew that the purchase contract that he had with the owners of the apartment building gave him control over the property. How? A real estate purchase contract provides the buyer, you, under the contract, with a legal right to buy the property for the price stipulated within the time frame given in the contract. Nobody else may legally purchase that property for the life of the contract without getting say-so from you, the buyer, under the contract. The buyer under the contract will gladly give say-so formally and in writing for a fee. In this case, KW advertised the apartment building for sale in the 2 major Seattle daily newspapers for the price contracted for. As we mentioned before, this was an excellent price. This generated a good volume of callers. One of the callers was a general building contractor with both the capital and the crew to rehabilitate the building. KW assigned his interest in the purchase contract to the builder for $4,000. This is a true win-win situation. KW got $4,000 for his ability to find a deal and negotiate a contract. The builder got a great project without having to hit the bricks to find it. Now his employees have work, and he will make a lot of money off the building, either by selling it after the work is done, or holding it for the ongoing cash flow from rentals. The sellers got rid of the building that they couldn't afford to repair. More to the point, KW did not spend a penny to make $4,000. He didn't lift a single paintbrush. He incurred no risk. In fact, in the unlikely event he had been unable to find anyone to take the purchase contract off his hands, he would have invoked one of the contingency clauses in the contract that would have canceled the deal with no further recourse to him. No money, no work, and no risk. What more could you want? Real life example number 2. AK lives and works in a Midwestern city. He decided he didn't like his job that much and wanted to expand out. It wasn't an awful job, but he wanted more. If you don't like what you do, any activity can be a job. So he decided to try real estate investing. Problem was, he didn't have much money, so he decided to apply the principle we are talking about here. He set out to gain control of properties without owning them in order to make money. We'll look at the details of what he did later on, but first, let's look at the results. Simply put, AK put the word out that he was looking for rental houses owned by out-of-state owners. An out-of-state owner called him. This man owned a house in a fairly desirable area that he was renting to the tenants from hell. They hadn't paid rent in 2 months. The property was trashy and beat up. The carpets were filthy. The yard was neglected. The owner's sense of distress came over the phone, loud and clear. It appeared that with some cosmetic work, the house would be worth about $75,000. It needed paint, carpeting, wallpaper, about $5,000 worth. The owner was renting the house out for $600 a month. In that neighborhood, that kind of house should have rented for $750, so the actual rent seemed low. The mortgage balance was $55,000. Payments of $550 a month included taxes and insurance. By the time the owner spoke with AK, he had already made 2 mortgage payments without getting any rent from his tenants. One man's problem was AK's opportunity. What AK proposed not only solved the out-of-state landlord's problem, but created a very nice payday for AK as well. Their agreement had AK rent the house for $550 a month for a 2-year term. This amount covered the out-of-state owner's mortgage payments. He further agreed to get rid of the current tenants, sparing the owner one more hassle and expense. Together with a lease, AK received an option from the owner to purchase the house within the 2-year term. The amount of the purchase price happened to be the balance of the mortgage at that time. In other words, the out-of-state owner relieved himself of a money-losing situation with no further financial loss. Let's recap what the two agreed to. Lease term, 2 years. Monthly rent, $550. Purchase option, $55,000. On the surface, this is a decent enough deal. AK had the property tied up for 2 years and was paying a rent amount lower than the going rental rate. Even better, he had the right to buy the house well below the market price. There were a few things AK needed to take care of. 1, he had inherited uncooperative tenants. 2, the property needed repairs. And 3, it would still require cash to buy this place in 2 years, which he didn't have. Most people think that getting bad tenants out is very difficult, but in this case it was easier than you might think. Everything anybody does is based either on anticipation of pleasure or avoidance of pain. The easiest way to evict a tenant is to make leaving very attractive. Problem, tenants can suddenly become quite cooperative when it's to their benefit. Often that means cash. In this case, AK simply knocked on the door and asked them to leave. They did without fuss. Had they not, there were other options, such as offering to let the 2 months of unpaid rent slide if they would leave tomorrow. Now came the issue of repairs. To complicate things, AK had spent his last $100 as consideration for the agreement with the out-of-state owner. His solution, he simply subleased the property to a handyman. In exchange for the work performed on the property, he would give the tenant an option to buy the property from him. This action concept led, of course, to the third problem to be solved. He couldn't sell the property to the new tenant until it was his to sell. He only had control, remember, not ownership. Sometimes you just have to make a leap of faith. We'll see later on how this worked to make AK a lot of money. But first of all, he took action. He ran an ad in the paper, rent to own, low down, you fix, large house. The simple ad generated a large volume of calls. AK considered the candidates and picked one particularly nice couple who was willing to fix up the house. AK proposed $1,500 option earnest money and $750 a month rent. Of the $750 a month, $200 would serve as a rent credit towards their down payment, combined with the $1,500 earnest money. With the agreement, the couple now had the option to purchase the property for $75,000. They countered with a proposal to pay $3,500 now and $575 a month rent. The larger sum up front was very attractive, and that became their agreement. The couple were in the house before AK even owed a first rent payment to the owner. They cleaned up the property and steam cleaned the carpets. Here AK was expecting to have to replace the carpets, but this couple decided they were fine with them as long as they were clean. Think about it. Who's going to live here? If the buyer is happy, why do any more? They actually liked the ugly wallpaper, and they repainted a few rooms, all at their own expense. Things were moving along well for AK. $100 paid to the owner of the house, and $30 for a newspaper ad was his total expenses. He had $3,500 cash in his hand. He was making an extra $25 a month on the difference between the rent he paid the owner and what his tenants paid him. But what about problem number 3? Problem number 3 actually had 2 parts. A, how can he pay the owner for the house in order to give the tenants clear title when they buy? And B, how are the tenants going to buy? They have poor credit history, including a bankruptcy and some collections. As soon as he could, AK contacted a local mortgage broker and asked about the tenants' chances of getting a loan. He wasn't really worried since their $3,500 was non-refundable. He couldn't lose, really. If they buy, he gets the rest of the money. If they don't buy, he still collected $3,500. The mortgage broker reviewed the tenant's financial situation and reported back to AK that he could get them financing. Indeed, even a person with a bankruptcy on their record can get a mortgage loan. We'll come back to this point later on, because knowing how credit works can help you get a lot of eager buyers into homes that you have control over. Who is it going to be easier to please after all? The couple with perfect credit who know they can get any kind of loan, or the people who think lenders will throw them out the door and call it the dogs on them? You help them finance the house and make available to them terms they can qualify for, and you become a hero. Heroes get paid well in our society, but we'll cover the workings of credit later. Back to our story for now. AK worked closely with the lender and the tenants for the next 6 months. It took dozens of phone calls, but finally the approval came. The tenants had financing. AK immediately called the out-of-state owner and let him know about the upcoming closing. The owner was thrilled because he had rid himself of a huge financial drain and a worry. He signed over the deed and received a check from the title company for $55,000. Then AK sat down with the tenants. He could now give them a deed. He had just received it from the owner, who was already on his way home, a very happy man. The mortgage lender provided the $75,000 purchase price, minus the $3,500 the tenants had already been paid. The title company handed AK a check for $16,500, the amount left over after the title company paid $55,000 to the former owner of the property. AK walked away from the deal with $20,000 net cash profit, which even included the $100 he paid to get the option from the out-of-state owner. 3 lessons. Let's look at 3 lessons to learn from the 2 examples we have seen so far. 1. Don't own investment property, just control it. Owning property is great if you don't have to pay for it. Years ago, there were lots of non-qualifying FHA and VA loans and assumptions. It was easy to buy, fix, and sell. Things are different now. Banks don't want to lend money so easily, and certainly not for extended terms. Even if you have lots of cash, you'll eventually run out. 2. Don't borrow money from banks to buy houses. Banks prefer short-term business loans over long-term financing. They also have many regulations imposed on them that restrict their flexibility. Even if you qualify for a mortgage on the basis of credit history and personal income, they may not offer terms that meet your needs. Besides, why take out a mortgage if you don't intend to hold on to the property for more than a couple of months? What if they charge prepayment penalties? At best, the lender will be hesitant to lend money the next time if you prepay the mortgage, because they didn't make anything off a loan paid off after a couple of months. 3. Don't fix up houses. fix up the financing. In both these stories, the investors never performed any physical work on the house. They solved somebody else's problem and created desirable terms that allowed a third party to take over ownership of the property. The third party was happy to fix up the property. KW bailed out a building owner who had foolishly neglected to provide insurance and was facing financial disaster while delivering a highly desirable product for the building contractor to buy and profitably use. AK solved a money drain problem for a man 1,000 miles away while helping a young couple finally realize the American dream and own their own home. Both KW and AK got paid for the service they rendered and the solutions to problems they provided, not for the sweat of their brows. The opportunity to render service and solve problems came because they were alert enough to see them and because they took action. The opportunity was not for sale, so they didn't have to buy a thing. Here is an important principle of building wealth. You can have anything you desire if you help enough people get what they need. What does this all mean for you? As a beginning entrepreneur, capital represents the largest barrier you will face. It's easy to buy properties if you have cash and excellent credit and connections. But obviously, if you had all the cash you needed, excellent credit, and all the financial connections you needed, you wouldn't be here today. You can see that this is an easy way to make $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 a month or more in no time, with no money, no credit, and no experience. You don't even have to know how to replace a roof or fix bad plumbing. None of that concerns you. The people who deal with that are those who get the opportunity to own a home from you, to take care of the repairs for you. Do you see now how you can make money in real estate without having to buy it? So how do you start? The two examples I discussed utilize two different techniques. To start then, let's look into how the two techniques work. The fundamental concept is the same. The execution is slightly different in each case. But before we outline the differences, let's look at some common points, some fundamental principles that apply to real estate investing across the board, whether you buy or not. As a real estate entrepreneur, you don't look for particular properties. You look for highly motivated sellers. Other than the obvious fact that this works best with single-family homes, the most important qualification of the seller is that the seller be very eager to take care of things. If the seller has a problem, you can provide a solution. Your solution ensures you a payday. It's that simple. On the other hand, if the seller is not highly motivated, it would be easier for you, and probably less painful in the long run, to just find a brick wall to go beat your head against. It's so simple. Motivated seller plus motivated entrepreneur, you, equals a good deal. How do you suppose AK was able to gain control of a $75,000 house with only $100? The owner, out of state, was at his wit's end. He was hemorrhaging cash each month and would continue to do so until someone bailed him out. The apartment building owner in Seattle had hundreds of thousands of dollars on the line. You can bet the mortgage was still due, while all 6 units were not only vacant, but uninhabitable. Point 1. Look for a highly motivated seller. As an investor, who you know is almost as important as what you know. There are several people and types of people who you should have in your contact database. A. Other investors. Never think of other investors as competition. Rarely will you run head-to-head with another investor on a deal. More likely, other investors will work with you in a variety of roles. Mentors, joint venture partners, money partners, people to sell to, and people to obtain deals from. B. People looking for a place to buy. If you know that Jim and Susie would like to find a little 3-bedroom, 1-bath house to buy and start their family in, wouldn't it make it a lot easier for you to make an offer and negotiate a purchase contract on a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house in the neighborhood they like, knowing that they will take it off your hands? Not only will they take it off your hands, they will pay you for having found it and negotiating a good price for them. The key here is in knowing whom you can show the deal once you find it. C. Your personal support team. Do you really want to do everything yourself? Learn to delegate. Some things aren't worth you doing. You can make more money doing other things. Other things you don't have the expertise to do. Other things you simply don't have time to do. Point number 2. No man or woman is an island. Let's get down to the nuts and bolts in the nitty-gritty. We will look at 2 activities designed to allow you to make money in real estate without the need of ever purchasing property yourself. Because you provide a valuable service to others, you get paid. These 2 activities are 1. Contract flips, 2. Sandwich lease options. Different people might use different names, but the activities are broadly seen as some of the least risky and easiest ways to make money. If you hear the term wholesaling, this is what they're talking about. Sometimes, however, people might talk about flipping, but they mean purchasing the house, then selling it again quick after fix-up. This obviously entails certain elements that we wish to avoid here: financing, purchase, fix-up, risk, work, hassle. You get the picture? Mind you, there is nothing wrong with purchasing a property, fixing it up pretty, and selling quickly. There's a lot of money there. However, we suggest you wait until your flips and lease options accumulate enough capital for you to do it without worry. So here's what you do. Contract flips. Simply put, a contract can be assigned. This means that if you are the buyer under a contract to purchase and sell real property, you can assign your rights under the contract to a third party. Assuming that the contract represents a good deal for the buyer, giving up your buyer rights means you are giving up something of value. For that, you deserve to be compensated. Conversely, the assignee, the person to whom you assign these rights, gains something of value, which must be paid for. There's no set amount for the assignment fee. It could be considered as more than a finder's fee, since you've not only found the property, but negotiated a contract. It has a lot to do with the value of the property involved, and might range from $1,000 to $5,000 or more. This might become more clear as we look at what you actually do with a contract flip. The investor's role. In this role, the investor buys real estate with the intention of immediate resale for profit. The flipper gains control over the properties at well below the going or retail rate. In a sense, the flipper acts as both principal and the middleman, buying at one price, then reselling at a higher price. In the absence of a large margin between the flipper's purchase price and the selling price, the resulting profit is close to what a real estate agent might make off the deal. But the flipper may only have a few hours of his time tied up in the deal instead of days or weeks of work. Occasionally, bargain purchases bring a much larger profit. In order to do these kind of contract flips, in most states, you need no license. In most states, you are not regulated by any government agency. You enjoy low overhead, work from home if you wish, you only need a telephone with voicemail, and you get flexible working hours. How flipping works. Flipping evolves through several levels, depending on experience, expertise, and how much time and effort you want to put into it. The finder. The finder works as a bird dog, finding potential deals. The finder then sells the information to other investors. This can be an excellent way to get started because you do not need cash or a lot of knowledge or experience to look for distressed properties. You look at property for sale, gather the necessary information, and then provide this information to investors for a fee. The fee varies according to the price of the property and how much profit potential it shows. You can easily earn $1,000 to $5,000 every time another investor uses your information to purchase a property. The dealer. Like the finder, the dealer locates deals for other investors, but takes the extra step of signing a contract for the purchase of the property. When you do this, you have two options. One, close on the property and turn it over for sale immediately. Two, just sell the contract to another investor. Either way, you provide more than just information because you control the property with a binding purchase contract. If you put up earnest money to secure the deal, you assume more risk than the finder does. On the other hand, by controlling the property with a purchase contract, your profit can be much higher. As a dealer, you can flip as many deals as you can find. It's not a matter of money, it's a matter of finding the deals. If you look on a full-time basis, you can make well over $15,000 a month without ever repairing a property or having to mess with a tenant. On a part-time basis, you can easily make an extra $5,000 a month flipping a property or two. Now you are a true entrepreneur. You can work as much or as little as you wish as your own boss and with no overhead. This is genuine financial freedom. The retailer. This is who buys the property that finders and dealers locate. The retailer fixes up the property to be sold for fair market value, i.e. retail, to whoever will be eventually living there. Of the three roles, the retailer puts up the most money, bears the greatest risk, and stands to make the largest profit on each deal. Part of the risk incurred stems from the time needed to rehabilitate the property and offer it for sale while dealing with the carrying cost on the purchase, repair, and miscellaneous expenses such as taxes and utilities. In contrast, the finder or the dealer get paid in just a few days. If you're just getting started in real estate and need to build your confidence and knowledge before moving on to other real estate ventures, but still need to make some extra cash, you should start with flipping contracts. With flipping, you'll be able to earn while you learn the ropes in real estate, and you don't have to worry about the risk if you do it right. What is flipping? Very simple. It's contracting to purchase a property, then selling your right to purchase to a third person. Where do you begin? You should begin with the end in mind. You want to know what to do after you find a motivated seller with a house you can buy well below market. If you find the house first, then try to figure out what to do with it. You might inherit a nightmare. Certain preparation ensures a good and profitable experience, beginning with lining up your real estate investment team. 1. Rehab investors or retailers to buy your contract. 2. A title company or an attorney to close the transaction. Know how it works in your individual state. 3. Most important, a good contractor agreement. Let's go over each of these in a little more detail. How to find investors that will buy your contract. For a moment, imagine yourself as a retailer with the capital you need to buy a house, fix it up, and sell again. You enjoy the work, maybe you're a handyman, or maybe you just enjoy the profits from a good sale. Most likely, you would rather let someone else do the footwork for you. Your job as a finder or a dealer is to find deals for the retailers. But first locate the retailers so you know where to turn when you have a hot prospect. They're not trying to hide out, so you only need to know where to look. Read newspaper ads. Look in the daily and weekly newspapers for the We Buy Houses ads. You might even find billboards or signs around town that says We Buy Houses. Participate in local real estate investor organizations. Not only are these groups good educational experiences, but you meet and mingle with a host of people who are happy to give you money for properties or even participate with you in the acquisition of other properties. Most major metropolitan areas have at least one club that meets monthly. You need to join and attend every meeting. The networking opportunities are endless. When you go to the meetings, tell everyone what you're planning to do. Once again, collect names and information about people who are interested in buying houses. Attend real estate auctions, not as a participant, but to meet the investors that gather. Foreclosure auctions and tax sales take place on a county basis. Don't forget about estate sales. Some investors hate to go out knocking on doors and dealing with emotional distressed owners. They much prefer to buy at the foreclosure auction. At most auctions, the property must be paid with cash or cashier's check within hours of the sale. What a wonderful opportunity for you to meet cash buyers for the houses you find. Introduce yourself to the investors and hand out business cards. Tell them you find houses just like the ones sold at the auction and ask them if they would be interested in being contacted when you find something. Just as you did with the We Buy Houses ad, you need to find out where and what price range they buy in. Ask for their business cards and make notes on the back or take along a notebook. Make sure and do this either before or after the auction. because the investors will be focused on bidding during the auction and won't appreciate distractions. Keep things organized. Keep an information sheet or database on each investor you meet. Be honest and tell them you are just starting out and will be looking for houses that need to be rehabbed. Make sure you find out what locations they prefer and the price range they look to. Some are particular about these things, and others will accept any good deal from any location. Find out if they are a cash buyer or if they will need some extra time to arrange financing. Keep telephone logs. Once word gets around that you flip contracts, you may get weekly phone calls from investors asking if you have anything. Keep a log of who calls. These will be the first investors you need to contact when you have a deal. How to find a good title company or attorney. A good reason for networking with other investors is to find out who they use for these tasks. By building a good relationship with the investors you call from ads, meet at the investor clubs, or at the auctions, you'll develop a base of mentors that you can call anytime you need advice. But don't abuse the privilege. Rarely will you make friends with someone if you call them frequently and keep them on the phone for a long time. Keep your phone calls brief and to the point, or better yet, take advantage of the time at the investor club meetings for your questions. Some investor clubs even arrange for legal counsel for members for a low fee or include it as a perk of membership. The agreement or contract. Finding the motivated seller with the right house and the right price is the starting point. Now you need to tie it up. You need a document that gives you control over the property so that you're able to make money from it. A rule of real estate tells us that if it's not in writing, it does not exist. Here you can record all the points that you and the seller have agreed to orally. A contract lets the seller know you're serious about buying their house, and it provides written instructions for the title company. All real estate contracts must be in writing. There are a number of good sources for such a contract. That means there is no reason to wing it. Your best bet is to consult with an attorney to have your contract written in your best interest. If you don't have the funds to pay an attorney, the next best thing would be to start with your state's real estate commission contract, then add or subtract a few key clauses. A contract from any office supply store will be too vague. Don't take that chance. The contracts used by a realtor or that you can get from a title company work well too. Finally, your local real estate investor club may have a great contract for you to use. Whichever agreement or contract you use, make sure to add a clause that protects your interest and allows you a way out of the contract. Examples are subject to approval of buyer's partner. But be aware, many real estate agents are wise to this one and recognize it's an escape clause. If they question you on this, simply explain there's a silent partner who wishes to remain anonymous. This agreement is subject to buyer's approval of satisfactory building inspection within 15 days. This contract may be assigned in such event the buyer named herein is released of all further liability. This offer is contingent upon buyer obtaining a new financing of their choice of X amount of dollars at X interest rate over the next 30 years. This is simply an example. You would use the numbers that pertain to this particular deal with an interest rate close to prevailing purchase money mortgage rate. Then if the rate you get is higher, you have the choice of withdrawing from the deal or waiving this clause. If you cannot find a buyer for the contract, you notify the seller in writing that your partner did not approve the purchase of the house or that you did not get the specified financing. Then you are no longer obligated to purchase the property. You should send notice by certified mail. Everything you and the seller agree to must be written in the contract or agreement. If it's not, the seller may develop a sudden case of amnesia. If the property is vacant, you can add the following clauses to the contract. Buyer to receive access to property upon acceptance of contract for the purpose of making repairs or showing the property to prospective tenants. If the house you're buying is listed with a realtor, any real estate agent can get you in to show it, and your agent should be happy to do so. If, however, the property is not listed, instead is for sale by owner, then you need a more reliable access. What if the seller suddenly goes on a 3-week fishing trip to Iceland? In this case, you need your own key so you can get in whenever it suits you. Add the following to the first statement and you are covered. buyer to receive keys to property upon acceptance of this agreement. You may even ask the seller to allow you to place a for sale or for rent sign in the yard prior to closing. Whatever you agree to, put it in the contract. It is essential that the contract does not have any clauses that would prevent you from assigning the contract. How to find houses for assignment. Before going on, let's review the preliminary steps to complete before you actually close a contract for purchase on a house you plan to flip. A. Locate 3 or more rehab investors to flip contracts to. B. Have your contracts ready and thoroughly understand them. C. Know which title company or attorney you will use to close that first flip deal. Now let's discuss how you can increase your odds of finding and closing more deals in the least amount of time. Here are 4 ways to find houses. 1. Farming for houses. 2. Tell the world, recruit bird dogs. 3. Research, research, research. 4. Advertise. A combination of all 4 gives you the best results and greatest success. However, you may have other time constraints, maybe a full-time job, that limit what you can do. In that case, pick the methods that best fit your schedule or your budget. Farming for houses. Your best farm area would comprise a 10 to 15 mile radius of your home. If you live in a major metropolitan area, it wastes time and money to drive all over town to look for houses. You'll quickly find that you're spending more time driving than actually looking at houses or talking to motivated sellers. Get to know your farm area like you know the back of your hand. It's not hard to do. Working just a few hours on the weekends will teach you a lot. Drive around within each neighborhood in your farm area. Keep a log or journal with information about your target neighborhoods. The best neighborhoods for flipping have houses that are about 20 years old. Newer houses may not have enough equity built up to allow for a profitable flip. Find the for sale signs in these neighborhoods. Write down the address and contact numbers in your log, then call to find out the square footage, number of bedroom and baths, how long it's been on the market, and what's the asking price. Keep all this information in your log. With this information, you've just established the approximate market value of houses in the neighborhood. If all the houses are newer and in great condition, then you simply need to find a different area to farm. What to look for? Vacant houses. How do you spot a vacant house? Tall grass is certainly a giveaway, as is a porch or doorway cluttered with phone books, flyers, and coupons from the local pizza parlor. Or perhaps a mailbox stuffed with mail that has not been picked up. Boarded up windows are a sure sign of a vacant house. When you find a vacant house, check with the neighbors to find out who owns the house. You want to find out how long they lived there, why they moved, how you can reach them, how long it's been vacant. In other words, get any information you can about the owner and the house. Let the neighbors know that you are looking for houses to buy in the neighborhood and that you work with a group of investors. These are your partners. They will remodel the house, then sell it to a good homeowner. Chances are they are anxious to have a good neighbor and will cooperate. Don't forget to ask if they know any other houses that are vacant or in need of repair in the neighborhood. If you leave your business card, they may think of a house after you leave, and you want to make sure they know how to get in touch with you. Sometimes the neighbors just won't give you names and numbers of the owner. If that happens, leave your business card and ask them to please get a message to the owner that you're interested in buying the house. Your next step is to check the property tax records. The names of your fellow taxpayers is public information and therefore available to you. Most property taxes are paid on a county level, so that is the place to start. Some tax office will give you the owner's name and address with just a phone call. Others require that you come in to check it out yourself. Many county tax records are on the internet. This is the first place to investigate. Once you find out who the owner is, you can either send them a letter or postcard or try to get their phone number and call them. Directory assistants may well have it, or the internet white pages may work. Let the owner know you saw their house at that particular address and may be interested in buying it. Ask if they are interested in selling and get as many details about the house as possible. Some things you need to find out are how many bedrooms, bathrooms, garages, what is the approximate square foot, how old is the house, does it have central heat and air, why did they move? These questions are just to warm them up for the important questions. Is there a mortgage on the house? If so, what is the approximate payoff? Are there any liens or judgments against the property? What repairs need to be done? Estimated cost of those repairs. How long have they owned the house? From this information, you can decide if the house is a good flip candidate or if you should just mark it off your list. For example, if they tell you they owe $40,000 on the mortgage and the house needs extensive repair, including foundation work, but you know from the information in your log that homes in good condition in that neighborhood are selling for $55,000, you can quickly determine from this information that this house just won't work. If they tell you they lived in the house for 30 years and the mortgage is paid off, but it needs $10,000 in repair and they just don't have the money for repairs, you know from the information in your log, homes in good condition are selling for $55,000. This has all the ingredients of a potential deal. Lots of equity, a motivated seller, and a house that needs work. They tell you they owned the house for 1 year, but just couldn't keep up with the payments because it's such a new mortgage, you can determine that they probably owe about what the house is worth, and it's not a flip candidate. You are looking for houses with at least 40% equity. The more, the better. So if houses are in good condition are selling for $60,000, you want to find houses that have at least $20,000 in equity. A real winning combination is a house with plenty of equity that needs repairs. Often, it is the excessive repairs that motivate the seller to sell below market. They think it will take $20,000 to fix the house, and they don't have the money and have no way to get the money. In reality, it will cost less. Occupied homes in need of repairs. Sometimes the first sign of a motivated seller is a house that screams, "Please help me," when you drive by. Perhaps the owner is having financial difficulty and just can't afford to maintain the house. Or perhaps that's just the way they live. Maybe it is a rental and the landlord won't put any money into fixing the house. You'll never know what situation it is until you contact the homeowner. To do this, you can 1. Knock on the door and tell the occupant you are looking for houses to buy in the neighborhood and ask if they would be interested in selling or know someone who is. Make sure to leave a business card. If it's a renter, try to get the owner's name and number. 2. Write down the address, look up the owner in the tax records, and send a letter or postcard saying you are looking for houses to buy in the neighborhood and want to know if they would be interested in selling or if they know someone who is. 3. Look up the owner in the tax records, find out their phone number, then call with the same info as in number 2. If you send a letter or postcard, you may not get a response the first time. Continue mailing to them every 3 to 4 weeks. When you knock on the door, they may say they aren't interested in selling right now. That can change as they think about it. Follow up with a letter or postcard every 3 or 4 weeks. Stop by the house occasionally to remind them that you're still interested in buying. An alternative to the postcard might be to leave a flyer on the door and all the other doors in the neighborhood with the message, "I buy houses, cash, quick close, any condition." If they show some interest in selling, then you need to ask the questions mentioned previously to see if it is a candidate for a flip. The follow-up is very important. Time has a way of changing everything, even turning an unmotivated seller into a motivated seller. Tell the world. Recruit bird dogs. You could expand your farm area and not take up any more of your own valuable time by telling everyone you come in contact with you are looking for rundown houses to buy. Tell all your coworkers, the people at the grocery store, everyone at church, your kids' friends' parents, your kids' teachers, the guy that fixes your car, the people at the cleaners, the waitress at Denny's, the people at the barbershop, the beauty shop, etc., etc., etc. The more eyes and ears you have out there looking for you, the more deals you'll do. You will find that it can be fun to network with bird dogs. As an example, from now on, you should never pay for gasoline at the pump. Gas pumps can't give you referrals, can they? But the attendant in the convenience store certainly can. The fun part comes when you discover the secret that makes everyone you meet want and love to talk to you. Here's the secret. Ask yourself, what topic are people universally most interested in talking about anytime, anywhere? The answer, themselves. If you have the attention of the convenience store clerk for 30 seconds while he or she swipes your credit card, or the pizza delivery guy while you write out a check, you grab his or her attention immediately if whatever you talk about is from his or her perspective. If the subject is weather, let it be the weather as they see it, or as it affects them. If it's the price of rice in China, let them tell you how they feel about it, or what they know about it. Maybe you have a PhD in Asian rice economics, but if you let the plumber tell you about how it all works, he'll think you're a top-notch human being and will be happy to give you 30 seconds to explain that you buy houses and would like him to find some for you. Always give your bird dog a number of business cards. The business cards let everyone know you are serious and ensures they have a way to contact you when they find a house. Ask them to write their own name and how you can get in contact with them on the back of the card. Why? You let each one of them know you pay a finder's fee of $500 or $1,000 or more for each house that closes. Finally, take the time to get to know the mail carriers, newspaper carriers, UPS drivers, FedEx drivers, assigned to your farm areas, as well as the people that do lawn work. These people travel all over town and can help to expand your farm area. Make sure everyone you talk to has your business card, that they know that you're looking for and know you would pay a finder's fee for any houses you're able to buy. Research, research, research. Often a recent event creates a motivated seller. I will mention some of these events later. Many of these events, like a foreclosure, are time sensitive, meaning you have a window of opportunity to act, and after a certain date, it's too late to buy the house from the owner. It is good to find out what the state laws are concerning these events so you'll know exactly how much time you have. You can get information about all these properties at your county courthouse, tax office, or other city municipal offices. You may also have a legal newspaper where this information is posted daily or weekly. 1. Foreclosure, trustee sales. 2. Foreclosure, tax sales. 3. Code violations, red tags. 4. Divorce. 5. Probate, which is death of an owner. 6. Evictions, landlords with bad tenants. 7. Bankruptcy. 8. Criminal act, going to jail. 9. Out-of-state owner. 10. Liens or judgments. Although these properties may take you outside your farm area, you know that the seller is likely to be highly motivated, which increases your odds of getting a great deal. Since you are researching this at the courthouse, you can also check up on the probability of equity while you're at the courthouse before you even contact the owners. Why waste time pursuing a deal with no equity? How can you determine there's enough equity? First, find out when the deed was recorded. The longer the owner has owned the house, the more equity they will probably have in the house. If the deed was recorded 2 years ago, you can scratch that lead off your list. On the other hand, if the deed date is 10 or 15 years old or more, jump on that one right away. As a rule of thumb, you can figure that a 10-year-old house deed equals 40% equity or higher. Of course, if you don't have time or lack the inclination to research these properties, you can hire someone to do the research for you. However, you will need to train them how, so you better learn how first. Some county courthouses offer free classes to teach you how to research properties. Find out if they do in your area and take the time to learn. Otherwise, just let one of the employees show you how. Government bureaucrats don't receive incentives from their employer to provide excellent customer service, but they do appreciate good positive recognition. Let them know you admire their expertise and appreciate their service, and they will be more inclined to show you how to do your research. You also need a good system for gathering information. This may be as sophisticated as a laptop computer database or as simple as a form you develop for entering the necessary information about the house and the owners. Keep it consistent for quick reference on any property or owner. Advertising. Check the real estate section of your local newspapers. Most of the houses for sale in the newspaper are in good condition and the owners want top dollar. Besides, only a portion of the homes for sale show up here at any one time because of the expense of the classified ads. However, sometimes you can find an ad with phrases like handyman special, selling as is, fixer-upper, must sell ASAP, or estate sale. We call these motivation words because they signal a motivated seller. Others would be, will consider any offer, needs TLC, seller transferred. Learn to skim through the ads and scan for these words. You may want to hold a highlighter in your hand. Simply dot the words as you scan them, then go back and only read those ads with a dot of color. This spares you the time of reading ads for luxury homes on a lakefront with 2 wooded acres that are definitely not candidates for flipping. Consider running your own ad in the real estate wanted section of the newspaper. The more people that you know that are looking for houses to buy, the more deals you'll do. Your ad could say, "We buy houses, cash, any condition." The fact of the matter is, there's a wide variety of activities that help you find deals. Brainstorm, think about it, and you may come up with something no one else has ever thought of before. The key is your consistency and perseverance. It's a numbers game, and if you look at enough places, you will find enough deals to make you wealthy. Okay, we're back. Let's get right into it. Let's get right into how exciting real estate investing can be, because the sooner we get into it, the sooner you're out there becoming a real estate investor and making and keeping more money. Let's change direction here. You know how to put together contract flips. We still need to go over lease options as well. Before we start, it might be good to look at one of the characteristics of a successful real estate entrepreneur that will serve you well as you start your business. Ancient wisdom tells us that we should be before we do, and do before we have. The opposite would say that we have to have all the trappings of an investor, the Cadillac, double-breasted suit, fat cigar, the gold money clip, etc., before you can do what investors do. And that until you do what investors do, you can't be one. The truth is, if you think like an investor, you will act like an investor, and the having what investors have will take care of itself. Let's take a little time to check out what an investor really is. Here are a collection of attitudes, thinking processes, and activities engaged in by one particular and successful real estate investor. We asked this particular person how he finds deals. Question: you have achieved a great deal of consistency in your business. Has that been difficult for you? Answer: consistently putting deals together is easier than you think. Really, making things happen and making serious money as a real estate investor does not require luck or extraordinary negotiation skills, and it doesn't take talent or money or a master's degree in business. Heck, none of that stuff matters. What does it take? In a word, persistence. I'm able to put deals together today because I continually get my message out to people who are looking for someone to help them out of their difficult situation. Next question. So you're saying that if you keep doing what works over and over, you'll be successful? Answer: absolutely. Persistence is the key. You've heard of the motivated seller. Guess what happens when he's introduced to Mr. Motivated Buyer? I'll tell you what happens. Deals. Things get signed off, and someone ultimately writes a check with my name on it. And that's what it's all about. Makes sense? In order to put deals together consistently, just put your message into the hands of the people who are eager to sell, and your success is virtually guaranteed. But you have to get your message out there consistently. Persistence is the key. Next question. What kind of things do you do consistently? His answer: there are lots of ways to pull it off. I like postcards, and I send them out by the hundreds. Postcards deliver my 6-line message with my phone number right there at the bottom. And if someone's thinking about getting rid of his property about the same time that thing shows up in their mailbox, boom, there's a deal in the works. But you can't just go send postcards to everyone. You need to target your mailing to the people who will most likely be looking for someone like you. Example, I'm always researching public records and pulling names and addresses of people in trouble. And that includes people who are delinquent in the payment of their property tax. After 4 years of unpaid property taxes in some states, that property gets scheduled for a foreclosure auction. You think those folks might be motivated? You bet they are. I mailed out a bunch last week, and I got 4 or 5 phone calls to return on my voicemail right now. Doing nothing more than this sort of thing, I consistently close 6, 8, or even a dozen deals virtually every month. Again, it's not luck or talent or skill that allows this to happen. It's getting that phone to ring with a hot-to-go seller on the other end. There are people who right now at this very moment are hoping and praying for someone like you to appear in their lives and help them out of their bind. Heck, they could be right next door. Now ask yourself this: how would they find me? Often your only real answer is they can't. However, If that motivated seller is in my town, he can pick up the newspaper and see my ad, or call me on my signs, or find me on my internet sites, or even respond to my postcards. Because if he's in foreclosure, going through an eviction, or is delinquent in his property taxes, or has an IRS lien, or hasn't paid his water bill, he's heard from me. Next question. What do you put on your postcards? His answer? It's very simple, because I can't depend on everyone liking to read a lot. In fact, that's why we use postcards instead of letters. If you get a piece of mail and one of the envelopes has a mailing label on it, do you bother to open it? Probably not. Even though my postcard is obviously junk mail, you can't help but read the message. It's short, it's in big print, and it jumps right out at you. The message is simply that an investor is looking for houses to buy. Any condition, default or foreclosure situation's okay, pay cash, then my phone number. I make the print big enough to fill up most of the card. Some people might even make the card a bright color so it stands out. I find out from public records that a homeowner is in default on the mortgage. They get my postcard once a week, because how else are they going to get out of trouble? Next question. So all you do to contact potential sellers is send postcards? His answer. There are many ways to find motivated sellers. There are dozens of other paths to the motivated seller's door. And time spent figuring out who these folks might be is generally time spent well indeed. I specialize in systematically finding and targeting these motivated sellers. We had a seller sell us a property last month for 1/10 of its value because he could no longer think about that damn tenant in the place. Now, he responded to a postcard sent to delinquent property tax owners, but it works just as well with newspaper ads. A seller paid me $500 yesterday to take over payments on his home, but he owed less than 80% of what it's worth, with payments that would allow us to have positive cash flow. Reason for selling? The Air Force transferred him, and unless he sold right now, his wife would have to stay behind until the house is sold. He responded to my ad in the paper. Next question. Is the text of your newspaper ad similar to the card? Answer. It's pretty much the same. The nice thing is the ad goes out to so many people for one cost, but it's not like the postcards are hugely expensive. It only costs about 30 cents to mail them, and I print them off my computer, forward a page on cardstock. I get results from both ads and postcards, but here there's something that the postcard can't do that ads don't. It's easier to hit out-of-state owners. Absentee owners are great to work with. The hassle of being in a different state provides its own motivation. Earlier this year, I bought 3 houses in 1 month on a mailing to out-of-state homeowners. In each instance, my postcards showed up in their mailbox at just the right time in their lives, and they were sufficiently motivated to get that property out of their lives once and for all. Hey, good thing I showed up, because when the dust settles, we'll have netted over $100,000 on these 3 deals alone. Get the idea? Question. Bottom line, what you're doing seems to work. Answer. I talked yesterday with at least 6 sellers who are responding to any one of my marketing strategies. 6. Not a one of them seems to have anything I like to buy, but that's not the point. The point is people are calling. Question. So now you're back where we started with persistence. Answer. Again, ask yourself, how many sellers called me yesterday? If the answer is zip, then you've got to do some work. Lay out the groundwork by getting your marketing in place. You don't need to do it all at once or have a dozen things in place for now. Just get yourself started with at least one good marketing strategy that puts callers on the line. If you can figure out a way to do that consistently, you're in the real estate business. Lease options. How do they work? Investing in real estate can be immensely rewarding, but it can also be scary. Given the large sums of money involved, it's easy for the investor to worry about what will happen if nobody wants that property that has cost him so much. Or what if the cost amount to more than the profit? Conventional wisdom looks at 2 general types of real estate investments. Those that an investor buys to flip or to sell again for a quick cash return. And those that one acquires to rent out for a long-term cash flow. Both are good. Having both kinds creates diversity in the investment portfolio. Immediate income capitalizes the business. Both have potential problems too. If an investor has acquired a home at 90% of its market value with the intent of fixing it up for resale, that means carrying cost, mortgage payments to the funding source, property taxes, insurance, selling expenses. On a $100,000 home, This could easily amount up to a monthly outflow in excess of $1,000 while waiting for the house to sell and then close. Not only is the $1,000 a month likely to be a burden, but the $3,000 paid in 3 months represents nearly a fourth of the projected profit on the deal, and the rest will be eaten up in the 6% real estate commissions. Why go through the bother only to break even? Renting has its own hazards. Let's say that by paying $1,000 a month on this house, you can rent it for $1,100 a month. So far, so good. Cash flow is $100 a month, and the property will appreciate over the years. What happens, however, if the tenant moves out and it takes a month or 2 to get a new one? What happens if the first renter was the tenant from hell who punched holes in the walls, let 5 dogs relieve themselves on the living room carpet, and takes the refrigerator with them? Once again, the investor pays thousands of dollars for the privilege of earning $100 a month. What we need is an alternative that doesn't cost as much as flipping a property but generates more income than renting. The alternative, lease option. What is a lease option? It starts with a normal lease agreement signed for a home for a set period of time. The tenant makes monthly rent payments and the landlord supplies the tenant a place to live. With a lease option, we add in an additional step, an option agreement, which gives the tenant the privilege of purchasing the home within a given period of time for a price agreed upon in advance. It is easy to see that a lease option is a hybrid of the 2 ways of dealing with a property that we described before, renting and flipping. As you will see, however, it mitigates most of the risks involved with these 2 methods while retaining many of the advantages. Let's look at some advantages of lease options over renting. Instead of collecting a refundable deposit in the first month's rent up front, you collect rent plus a non-refundable option consideration of anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000, depending on your market. Instead of collecting the normal market monthly rental payments, you get rent plus an additional amount. You credit the additional amount towards the option as further non-refundable consideration, and since this is non-refundable, it's yours to keep as profit, even if the deal is never completed and the tenant never exercises the option. At the time the option is exercised, you receive the remainder of the profit you have coming to you, based on your earlier estimate of what the market value of the house would be at the end of the option term. Your tenant is planning on buying the house. Who do you suppose will take better care of it? The renter who plans on moving or the tenant who wants to own it? In other words, your investment property is well taken care of. The option agreement stipulates that the tenant becomes responsible for maintenance. Instead of calling you in the middle of the night when the sewer backs up, the tenant calls Roto-Rooter and the tenant pays for the service without deducting it from the rent. In short, you get more money up front, more money during the course of the lease, a profit on the back end. The tenant takes better care of the property and assumes responsibility for maintenance. On top of that, as you will see in our next installment, the investor can turn this property around in just a couple of weeks instead of in several months. What is the best way to market a house for lease option? First, let's look at the target market. Who might be interested in a minimal down payment to buy a house? Think of a young married couple, newlyweds. Between the 2 of them, they make enough to handle the payments, but they haven't had the time to save up for the down payment for a conventional loan. Between the 2 of them, they may be earning $4,000 a month, but have no savings. However, they feel they need to invest in a place to live. And now, if they had to, they could scrape up $5,000 from various relatives. There are other people who have been married for a number of years, but have been living paycheck to paycheck and have never saved anything, or they have a credit history that makes conventional financing too expensive. What will catch their attention? First of all, an announcement. Rent to own will make a strong impression. The term lease option may be incomprehensible jargon to them, but rent to own they are familiar with. Who knows? Maybe that's how they furnish their apartment. This is then the foundation of our advertising. The ads we place might be newspaper classified, or they might be from flyers posted in public places. Both will work. For double coverage, you could place classifieds both in the homes for sale and the homes for rent section of the paper. Here are the possible ads you can run. Rent to own. My nice 3-bedroom home. Owner desperate, must sell, $3,000 gets you in. When people call, don't make the mistake of seeing people separately. Half of them won't show up, and you'll experience the frustration of driving over to this house and waiting for 45 minutes for nothing. Instead, try this dialogue when they call you. Hi, I'm calling about the house in the paper, Rent-Tone. Oh yeah, which ad was that? It says 3,000 gets you in. Great, I'd like to show it to you. Do you have the 3,000? Or, can you handle 900 a month? Yeah. How's your credit? It's okay. Good, I'll tell you what. I'm going to be at the house Saturday to clean things up. Meet me at 4, I'll show you through, and let you fill out a credit application. Bring your checkbook for the deposit, and I'll see you there. Saturday at 4, there should be a pretty good crowd at the house, wandering around the yard, peering in the windows, wondering where you are. About 10 after 4, you show up and apologize for being late. Then look at your clipboard. We have a list of people you talked to over the phone, having marked the ones that sounded certain to be there, and ask, okay, who's Ed and Lucille? Ed and Lucille step forward. You say, come in, I'll show you through. Then say the rest. This will just take a moment, and I'll be right back to take care of the rest of you. Just hold on a minute, okay? You let the first couple look at the house. Then have them fill out a credit application in the kitchen. The kitchen is generally the room that makes or breaks the deal. Take the application, their check for $3,000, and say, it'll take me 10 to 15 days to check this out, but I'll get back to you. They leave, you get the next couple. Note, you may be concerned about asking for $3,000 from strangers. Why would they be willing to give that much money to someone they don't know? Here's why. There are 10 other couples standing in front of the house on the front lawn willing to pay the $3,000, and they know it. They recognize an opportunity to get a place of their own in a way they can afford to. For that matter, if they don't want to pay $3,000, go ahead and say, you know, I can understand that and I respect that. Here, we'll put the credit application in the trash. Don't worry about it. Many will give in at that moment, and others will suddenly change their minds out on the driveway after they leave the house. If they don't, so what? You have 10 other couples eager to buy the house. Here is why I recommend taking the deposit up front from everyone. You know a person who gives you a check is committed, and you don't have to worry about doing all the due diligence on all those credit applications for nothing. When you deposit the checks, you test which are good. When you deposit 8 to 10 $3,000 checks at the bank, you make a lot of friends in the financial community. Regarding payments, the investor has a strong device for ensuring prompt lease payments. Remember, the lease payment is made up of a base rent amount, normal for the local market, and an extra sum of option consideration. If they pay on time, let's say before the 3rd of the month, the extra amount counts. After the 3rd, the extra amount is just part of the rent. You get the same amount regardless, but if they pay late, they end up owing more down payment at the end. How to protect a lease option. There are some things you should take care of to protect a lease option. One thing you want to avoid is a situation known as an equitable mortgage. In brief, that means the judge decides that your arrangement is not a lease but a mortgage. This might come about if you had a bad tenant whom you wish to evict, but who protests in court that this is really a purchase, therefore you must foreclose. With an eviction, you can get the person out within a month. A foreclosure means 9 months with no lease income. Here are things you can do to ensure this is not a problem. Know the landlord-tenant laws for your state. Record the option agreement for public record. Escrow the deed with an escrow or title company. Keep the lease agreement and the option agreement as 2 separate documents. Keep the terms relatively short. 2 years or less is good. Take a refundable security deposit, a small amount, so the tenant can still afford the non-refundable option consideration. Seller pays all property taxes and insurance on the house. Don't give unusually large option credits as part of the monthly payments. Watch contract language. Good language, landlord/tenant, non-refundable option consideration. Avoid buyer-seller, credit toward down payment. In summary, a lease option is a possibility for dealing with a property that doesn't leave you enough equity that you want to risk flipping or just renting. You get a better tenant, more motivated to take good care of things, collect more money on the front, during and on the back end, and can move it quicker. Just in case you might be worried that the tenant might not exercise the option in the term agreed, just remember that 80% do not. So what do? You turn around and offer it to someone else with a consideration up front, only now adjust the monthly amount to reflect current market conditions and increase the purchase price according to current market conditions and sit back and let it generate more income for you. What a deal. How can you profit from a sandwich? A property investment with low capital requirements. If a lease option is a good way for the investor to sell a house, also a good way for the buyer who can't go through normal financing channels to buy a house, then doesn't it make sense that an investor could buy a house the same way? In fact, how about a way to gain control over property without incurring the risk of actual ownership while still making the same kind of profit? The vehicle here is a sandwich lease option. A sandwich lease option is simply two lease options arranged, sandwiched around a single investment transaction. You gain control over the property by signing an option agreement to buy it. You now control it because the owner cannot sell it without first going to you. Your outlay on the deal might be as little as the security deposit and the first month's rent, possibly a little option consideration. Obviously, you will not volunteer to pay more consideration than the seller requires. Meanwhile, you quickly place a tenant in the property using a lease option on the other side. Here you charge the normal option consideration, both upfront and monthly over the term of the option, while requiring normal market rent. Your profit? The full amount of the consideration, perhaps less your security deposit, unless you get a security deposit from your tenant to offset that. Obviously, your tenant at least offsets the rent you paid. Additionally, if your rent obligation is favorable enough, you can pick up a little on the margin between that and what your tenant pays you. In short, this arrangement has its advantages. The investor's capital costs can be minimized since the property is not really purchased until the money comes in from the second half of the deal. This can be done regardless of the investor's personal income or credit history. Since the investor does not need financing, as many of these deals can be done simultaneously as the investor can find and negotiate. Where do you find these deals? To make it simple, don't bother with advertisements, classified or others for lease option. The person who calls it that is savvy enough to pull all the potential profit out of the deal before you get to it. Instead, approach landlords who advertise a house for rent, pure and simple. All they want to do is get a tenant in before they start losing money. However, many would welcome the chance to sell the house too. Why? Why does a landlord rent out a single-family house? There are a few possible motives. The landlord is an investor who's holding on to it for cash flow. The landlord used to live in the house, then bought a new place and thought it would be cool to rent out his old one. Now it has become clear that that involves work and is no longer fun. The landlord had to move because of a job transfer or just couldn't get the house sold when the new house was ready, so he had to rent it out to offset the extra mortgage expense. In any of these cases, the landlord might easily be persuaded that giving you an option would be smart business. In the last situation, persuasion probably won't be necessary. This is a highly motivated seller. At any rate, you can test it out with the following dialogue. Hi, I'm calling about the house you have for rent in Springfield. Can you tell me a little bit about it? After discussing it for a minute, continue. To tell you the truth, what I want to do is buy a place, but I can't afford to right now. But I'd be very interested in renting this one from you with an option to buy it down the road a couple of years. Now picture the reaction of the person who is tired of owning the house. You have just answered his or her prayers. Imagine if that person lives 1,000 miles away now because of a job transfer. You are offering to relieve him of their major headache. Even better, what if the house has been vacant for a month or two when you call? Anytime you spy a house for rent and see signs that nobody lives there, nor has it been occupied for any length of time, stop the car. Get out and talk to a neighbor. Find out the situation. Where is the owner? Why is it being rented? What happened to the last tenants? If the owner is out of state and had to rent it because he couldn't get it sold in time, you have struck the mother lode. Call the owner and get him out of his misery. Make sure you don't pay rent in a much higher amount than what is needed for the mortgage, taxes, and insurance. Yes, he still pays taxes and insurance. It's his house. What if the owner's not interested? If the landlord is interested in giving you an option, you can discuss the details at this time. If not, ask, "Oh, so you are an investor?" Most likely this person is an investor wanting to hold on to the property. Use this opportunity to network with investors with whom you can do business in the future. For example, that's great. I'm just learning right now, and I've got a ways to go, but it's a lot of fun. Tell me, what kind of properties do you work with most? What works best for you? Give them the opportunity to play the expert, which they most likely will be happy to do. Keep a database so that in the future, if you come across a great fourplex and you can't buy it for time or money constraints, you could still get it under contract for a great price, then call those contacts who like fourplexes and explain. Hi, this is Bob. I talked to you a few weeks ago about your rental house on Maple Avenue. You mentioned that you look for fourplexes. Well, I've got a fourplex under contract on South Jefferson with a pretty good price, but some things have come up that will make it impossible for me to go through with a deal. Before I let it go, I wanted to see if you'd be interested in taking it off my hands. The consideration on the assignment here could net you $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 for being able to negotiate a good purchase contract. Here are some things to watch out for. Make sure that the lease agreement that you sign as a tenant does not prohibit you from subleasing. Think about it for a moment, and you will understand why. Remember, this is all about subleasing. A primary reason for this condition in a contract is because the landlord is looking at this as a long-term investment and in the interest of preserving its value wishes to control who lives there, not concede that power to a third party. However, in this case, you have now taken over interest in the long-term investment and you desire this control for yourself. Besides, as you may have to explain without striking that clause from the contract, you cannot do the deal. Highly motivated sellers will give in. Solution: if you prepare the lease agreement, make sure it makes no mention of subleasing. Make sure you take in more money than you spend on the transaction. This may seem like a no-brainer, but that is why you avoid the people advertising a lease option. Go to those who are only thinking of renting out the house. Ideally, you want to pay no option consideration. Maybe you end up paying $1,000 up front and nothing per month. Then you collect $2,000 from your tenant and $250 per month. Remember, the landlord was not thinking consideration when he placed the rental ad. Also, negotiate the lowest possible rent payment for yourself so that you have a margin between what you pay and what you collect. It helps that you don't have to pay property taxes and insurance out of your rental revenues. Set an expiration for the option you give to be 2 months prior to the option you buy. If your tenant exercises the option, things will take care of themselves with a simultaneous or double closing. If the tenant doesn't exercise the option, you have 3 possibilities for your next move. The tenant walks away from it, so do you. The option gives you the right to buy the house, not the obligation. Tell the owner, I thought I had things set up to buy this from you next month, but that just fell through. I'd still like to do it though. Would you be interested in renewing the option for another 2 years? For the past 2 years, I paid you like clockwork and the house is in marvelous shape. Why wouldn't the owner want to continue? Or, you like the house, you have a 2-month window, go out and get financing to buy the house under the original option terms. Obviously, this latter choice is the reason for the 2-month difference. A sandwich lease option is a good alternative to the normal buy, fix, sell type of lease option or flip. The advantage is that if you are currently cash poor and overextended, you're not out of business. Just rent a 2-year investment, earn some of it now, make the rest later. Find a tired landlord, you find a good deal. Here's a great technique that allows you to gain access to tired landlords and close more lease option deals. Step 1. Run the following classified ads. Problem tenants? Call the eviction specialist. Simple, easy, very effective. Step 2. People will call asking about your services. Gain some rapport. Then set up a time with them to meet and discuss exactly what their tenant problem is and how you can help them. The phone is not time for details. Remember, 80% of our communication is nonverbal, meaning most of our communication comes from body language, facial expressions, gestures, even our aura. All you have on the phone is words and tone of voice. Step 3, you meet with the landlord and you listen to all of his or her problems. No rent in 4 months, the place is getting trash, tenants are dealing drugs, etc., etc. Let them talk. You control the direction of the conversation by asking questions, so you should be the asker, not the teller at this point. After you have all of the details and the landlord has vented, you can explain how you can help. Here's what you say. Mr. Jones, I'm certain I can help you, But I guess I have some other concerns here, and I know I may be overstepping my bounds, so please don't be offended. But what are you going to do the next time this happens? I mean, this problem is bad enough, but you know it's often part of the game. And I guess I'm not sure if you're really enjoying playing the game anymore. Landlord kind of responds, I don't know, well, it's not always this bad, or I'll just come see you. Then you respond, let me ask you this. Why did you get into the whole landlord property owner thing in the first place? Was it for cash flow? To secure a better future? Passive income maybe? Landlord kind of mumbles. You come back with, it's not a lot of fun right now, is it? And you're not making a lot of money if the tenants aren't paying. With all that, I was thinking you might be open to a method where you can get back to where being a property owner was fun again. I'm talking about making everything a turnkey operation. You never have to collect rent or do repairs or screen tenants or anything other than just collect a check each month. I mean, isn't that why you got into real estate in the first place? The landlord should be getting interested at this point. At this point, you can explain the lease option. It's a good idea to have the forms available. Then you agree to finish off the eviction for free, and another deal goes into your portfolio. Sometimes you get people who aren't interested, or when you pitch them, they respond negatively. If that happens, you just backtrack like this. Okay, what you need then is to get this eviction underway so you can get back to landlording. And you help them with their eviction and pick up $500 or so for your time. Easy enough? And that's the process. Easy enough? Here are some concerns. How do you not practice law? In the service agreement the landlord signs, there is a statement that says we are not giving legal advice. Rather, the example forms we provide are merely that, and if they are not sure of what they are doing, they need to find legal representation. Also, it states that your fee covers the education of the eviction process, and the calendar we provide showing them what to do when is an example only. How do you know how to do an eviction? If you're not an expert at this already, you should arrange to meet with an eviction attorney and pay him to answer everything. You can also contact a local investors group and see if there are eviction packets you can learn from. How much do you charge? Why do people use you? And when do you collect? One expert charges $525. Why $525? Because the attorney in his town does it for $975. The attorney in his town is slow and files all of his documents weeks and weeks after he should. He is not a landlord and never has known the pain of eviction. He gets paid regardless of what he does. So the job of our example expert is to be better, cheaper, and more effective. You collect your fee at the time you sign the agreement and start the forms. And what have you done? You've put another prospect into your pool of potential homes to buy in the future. Once you have control of a house, what's the best way to move it? If an investor wants to sell a house to generate capital for his business, the quicker the sale goes, the more money the investor can make on the deal. Waiting for the house to sell creates expenses that erode away at potential profits. Therefore, our sales strategy is designed to appeal to the largest possible market. The biggest group of home buyers in any community is the first-time buyers. There are others who are moving in from out of town or moving up because they have made more money or buying a bigger place because they have more kids, but the largest single group is first-timers. Even many of these coming in from out of town will be looking for starter homes because they can't afford more. This being the case, we want to work out a strategy for appealing to the people in this group and techniques for getting their attention and helping them move through the process quickly. The latter consideration is important because as first-time buyers, they've never gone through the process before and is likely to be scary and foreign to them. That means that the service we render in helping them along will be rewarded on top of the rewards we gain for selling the house. What are first-time buyers like? It is good to remember the feelings and perspectives of the members of our target market. People buy according to their feelings. Here are some things to remember about them. They don't always know how to proceed. Many don't expect to be able to buy a house anytime soon because they don't believe they can afford one. Some grew up in a renter's environment, their family always rented, and they believe this is their lot in life. It is easy for these people to see themselves on the fringes of society, on the outside looking in. Feeling excluded, many of them mistrust institutions such as banks, government, and real estate companies. The monthly payment on an FHA loan will be very much the same as they are already paying in rent, but you can point out that it will not increase like on a landlord's whim, and they get a tax write-off on the interest. Furthermore, you will help them get the funds for the down payment so that it needn't be a concern. Advertising doesn't cost much. Since our target market doesn't expect to buy a house soon, they will not be looking for realtor signs. Since they do rent, however, they will notice the handmade signs you put up. For signboard, I suggest you get tile board from Home Depot and cut it down to size. One 4x8 sheet will give you 8 signs that are 2 feet square. You can write on the sign with a felt tip marker. Your cost per sign will be $1.50. Here's an example of what to put on a suggested sign. Home for sale, rent to own, $1,000 deposit, call and your number. The sign does not give an address. You can reuse the sign for different deals. If you put it up on public property, parking strips and along side streets, etc., do so on a Friday afternoon and then pick them up again early Monday morning so that city employees don't take them down. Even better, get permission from friends to put them on private property. They only need to be in the same part of town as the house. Here is an explanation of the sign. We call attention to the sale portion of the transaction with the first line. We put rent to own in large letters because this is the grabber. Most people who are renting now would love to buy a home, but don't feel like they can right now. Reading this, they are likely to think, oh, I'm already renting, so I can do that? But now I can do what I've been doing all along and still own a place? The amount of the deposit is equal to whatever you would charge for rent on this house, where you rent it out. That makes it equivalent to what your potential buyers are used to paying for security deposit on their lease, which they feel they can handle. Make sure that you have voicemail on this phone line, since you can't always be there to answer. Voicemail is better than a machine because it can pick up while you're talking on the phone and you don't miss any calls. With a monthly payment the same as they're used to, with the advantage that it won't go up with inflation and no worries about down payment, why would any of these people not want to purchase your house? In fact, what you're selling here is not the house per se. It is the concept of affordable home ownership. Which house it may be is almost secondary. The sale is made on the excitement of this couple being able to buy a house of their own. Because of the other realities above, we approach the market as just regular people, not slick professionals. Our advertising is homemade. Our approach is low-keyed and simple. The plan comes in 5 steps, which can begin as soon as the investor signs a contract for purchase of a suitable house. In fact, all purchase contracts should contain a clause in the addendum allowing immediate access to the house for the purpose of showing it to potential occupants. With luck and some work, your buyers could close on their purchase simultaneous with your purchase of the house, meaning very low cost in your acquisition and more profit in your pocket. Here are the steps. Step 1. Put up a dozen signs around the neighborhood. You could put the same message on flyers and distribute them all over public bulletin boards in town. This keeps your costs down. Step 2. As you talk to callers responding to your signs and flyers, you want to accomplish 2 tasks. 1. Make sure this house is suitable to the caller. If the caller has 6 kids and the house has 2 bedrooms, it won't do much good to pursue things. However, now you have a contact who would likely be interested in any 4-bedroom house you can supply. Get information and go find a house for these people. You will know how you are disposing of it before you even sign the purchase agreement. 2. Gather the information you will need to get the caller pre-qualified for FHA financing. Check with your mortgage professional to find out the bare minimum information you need. Don't pump the callers for lots of information or you'll lose them. Remember that they may well mistrust institutions and now you're acting just like a banker if you ask too much. Submit the information to your mortgage professionals, who will need only an hour to tell you whether this caller qualifies. If yes, get in contact with the caller again and set a time to meet at the house together. This will be the first time the caller even knows the address. Let the mortgage professional know of the meeting so he or she can be on the call. Step 3. Meet the potential buyers at the house and let them look at it. The emphasis on your conversation should be on the exciting concept that they can own their own home. Also, let them talk about what colors they would choose for paint and flooring. Let them dream. As quickly as possible, ideally at the time of the first visit, you would like to accomplish the following. 1. Have the seller sign the sell and buy agreement and give you the deposit called for on the sign. This deposit will go into an escrow account maintained by whoever will do your closing, either a title company or an attorney. 2. Have the seller fill out the FHA loan application packet. This packet has as many as 18 pages and calls for up to 15 signatures per applicant, along with a half a dozen places for the applicant's initials. Without some help and guidance, your clients will likely undergo a panic attack. At the time you set up this meeting, you should have notified the mortgage expert to be on call. The mortgage person gets a commission for this loan. He or she also has several other people sent by you to place loans for because you only have one house to sell and several people who are interested. The mortgage person should be willing to come over to the house and get the application filled out here and now. It is wise to strike when the iron is hot, while the buyers feel the enthusiasm and the euphoria of obtaining their own home. If the mortgage person can't make it, you'll have to be the one to hold the buyer's hands. By no means should you simply hand them the packet and say, "Go home and fill this out and bring it back to me." You'll never see them again. Step 4. After a period of time, you will hear from the mortgage broker that the loan has been approved. That means that it's time to take 2 more steps. 1. Have the buyer sign a lease and move into the house. They will be ecstatic, and you will collect an occupancy deposit in approximately the same amount as the first deposit. It, too, goes into escrow. The lease should be open-ended because it is not yet certain how long they will rent the house from you. It depends on how much down payment money they need. 2. Get a statement from an FHA appraiser about the dollar value of the sweat equity work that your buyers can perform. Anybody can paint, and every house you buy should be painted inside. FHA will recognize the going rate for the job in that community. For painting the interior of a 1,100 square foot house, that is generally around $2,000. Make sure the appraiser knows that you need a generous estimate for the purpose of generating credit approval for a down payment. If the work to be done requires licensing in your community, the person doing the work must be licensed. This would include such things as electrical or plumbing work. If the buyer is licensed, that provides a great opportunity. The work can also be performed by relatives and gifted to the buyers. You get to pay for all materials, but your buyers are credited for the work towards their down payment. Step 5. When work is done and carpet is laid, you get a final as-is appraisal and schedule the closing. On homes priced below $80,000, it is likely that deposits and sweat equity have covered the 3% down payment required. If the home is higher priced and all the work to be done is the interior painting, the buyers will have to come up with more. FHA allows a number of means outside of a person's savings. Money can be lent to buyers by a relative, but not by the seller or any person taking part in the transaction. Money can be gifted to the buyers by a relative. A nonprofit charitable organization can gift money to the buyers. Sweat equity. The buyers can tender a surplus of rent paid. This means that if the lease calls for an amount at the low end of the range of rents recognized for this type of house in the neighborhood, but the tenant pays the high end of rent, and this goes through the escrow account from which the rent due you is paid, then the surplus paid accumulates toward the down payment. In a few months, there'll be enough there along with sweat equity credits to close the deal. The end result is that anybody who can qualify for FHA financing can buy your starter home within a month or so. If they cannot qualify for reasons of credit history, their possible recourse is to enter into a lease option arrangement with you. 2 years of good payments will clear up nearly any credit problem, and in 2 years, they can now finance the house. Using these techniques, it is possible to sell any modestly priced home in your area very quickly, with a selection of interested buyers. The quicker you sell, the more money you make. Whether or not you let your realtor in on the process is up to you. 30-day plan of action for a new real estate investor. 1. Solidify your plan. Knowing with great clarity exactly what you want will take you a long way to getting it. Start your plan with a powerful vision of what you desire your life to be. Then create an effective mission statement to explain how you will get to that desired life state, which will serve as an anchor for future goals. Decide with clarity what you want to accomplish over the next 5 years, next 10 years. What kind of properties do you want to look for? How much time do you wish to spend each week? You need to plan your calendar a week at a time. Set aside specific blocks of time each day for your business and don't allow anything to interfere. Review your vision at least weekly, your mission statement daily, your specific goals several times a day. 2. Link up with a money source, or better yet, a number of possible money sources. I will be going over next how mortgage experts and money partners provide background on how to do this. You should continually increase your network by marketing yourself at all times. The clerk at the 7-Eleven might even have an uncle with enough money to fund your next project. 3. Work at least 3 to 5 hours a week. Clearly, the amount of time you put into your business pays dividends on its success. However, you have other demands on your time besides real estate investing, and you have developed habits over the years that respond to these demands and don't welcome change in the routine. Only careful planning will enable you to get done what this business requires for success. Some events in our life are urgent. Others are important. The two don't necessarily mean the same thing. Some events are urgent because they shout at you, but have no importance at all. The loudly ringing telephone might be a wrong number. The quiet, important things will become overwhelmed by the urgencies, whether important or not, if you don't plan for them. Plan your business at least a week at a time. Daily planning without weekly orientation becomes crisis management, and you become subject to last-minute urgencies that don't fit your mission statement. Obviously, a major part of your planning will include your goals, particularly the short-term items that bring you to the long-term results. Be wise in your goal setting. It's important to not only have results goals, but also performance goals. Setting a goal to earn $10,000 a month within a year is great, but your goals must also lay out how you will get there. A sample plan might be: 1. Talk to 20 sellers a week. 2. Visit and walk through 5 houses a week. 3. Make 2 offers a week. 4. Purchase 1 property a month. Based on these performance goals, you will be able to plan your income, because each of these activities will produce a result that you can measure. Over a short period, you will know how many calls you need to visit 5 houses a week, and you'll discover how many offers you must make to purchase 1 property that meets your purchase criteria. 4. Recruit real estate agents who will seek out deals for you and provide comps. 5. Learn how to analyze comparable sales reports and compute an offer. 6. Submit your first offer within 14 days. 7. Assemble the rest of your support team. 8. Put notices on bulletin boards, classified ads, and postcards. 9. Schedule monthly stewardship interviews with yourself. You need to assess your performance, adjust your course, and refine your goals on a regular basis. This will include considering adjustments to your personal vision as well as to the direction of your business. Even the most sophisticated airliner flying from New York to Los Angeles is off course 90% of the time. Its onboard computer stays in constant contact with a worldwide network of beacons. The entire voyage is a series of analysis and correction of course. That is the way our lives are, and that is the way your business life will be. With this start, if you stay with it, your future is bright. Remember that consistency, the everyday consistent actions and tasks, are the lifeblood of your venture. Make sure this includes always learning new things. Books, tapes, seminars, information from the World Wide Web should be a part of your daily business routine. Master this, and after you've mastered the business that will provide you the greatest freedom you can have, the freedom to be and do what you desire without financial worry, are all under your direction. In summary, you've learned how to find homes for sale. You've learned how to acquire homes. You've learned how to finance homes. You've learned how to lease homes. You've learned how to sublease homes. You've learned how to buy and sell real estate. You've learned enough fundamental skills to go out there and begin making and keeping more money. What I suggest from here is once you take what you've learned today and put that into action and start making money, to then go to the next level, the very next level in earning money in real estate, and that is by being coached and or mentored by a professional. We have mentored thousands of people in real estate. Thousands of people just like you are making and keeping more money every day. If you're interested in going to the next level, please visit my website at www.bruceaberman.com, and you'll find a link to our mentoring services. Visit that link and see if you qualify for my one-on-one mentoring coaching. You'll be surprised at how reasonable it is and how it will help you go to the next level of real estate investor success.